Great Sunrise family, I hope all is well with you as it is with me on this day. Going through and seeing all this political grifting, that's what I'm going to call it, grifters. Because just like Tahaka Bay is bringing out the grifters here on YouTube, we have grifters everywhere. Politics is a grifting. And they are grifting on a worldwide level. Let me just share the video.
World now. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has announced a $1 billion initiative to improve women's economic empowerment in Africa as she wrapped up the first leg of a tour of the continent. Mrs. Harris's office unveiled the program, largely funded by the private sector in Accra, Ghana. The African Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative includes nearly $400 million to help bridge the gender digital divide and more than $500 million to be used to support women's economic empowerment in Africa. The U.S. Vice President then left Ghana for Tanzania, scheduled to last until April the 2nd. The U.S. VP's tour of Ghana, Tanzania, and Zambia comes on the heels of a December U.S.-Africa summit in Washington, D.C., where President Joe Biden called for a broad partnership with Africa as the U.S. seeks to assert its presence on the continent in the face of growing influence from China and Russia. Joining me to speak on this via Zoom is a global affairs analyst, Ejike Okpa. Thanks for joining us on World Now. The U.S. Vice President's trip is the latest effort to counter Moscow's and Beijing's influence on the continent. But the question is, can Kamala Harris's visit shore up the U.S. relations with Africa?
Well, thank you for having me on your show. You know, you say yes and you say no kind of answer. Because, I mean, historically, Clinton went to Ghana and then Obama went to Ghana, and now you have the vice president going to Ghana. So the question is, since even Obama, who went, I think the first few months of him becoming president, 2009. So what has that gotten Ghana? You get all this excitement about foreign visitors. The headlines, the newspapers, the media, people talk about it. But then years after, can we go back and say, okay, what actually got implemented? The vice president has announced $1 billion from the private sector. I mean, to me, that's kind of funny. Who's the private sector? Is it, private individuals? Is it private businesses? Who are the ones that have pledged this money? And how is the money going to be, disbursed? What is the style? So what I have noticed is that this, American diplomats and government officials, they go to Africa, they throw this thing on African faces, and they get excited. And then they just fold their hands and then they wait and nothing happens. So, as much as that is good that, people visit Africa and try to strengthen relationship, Africans themselves will have to come to terms. And what sort of relationship do they want? None of these African countries just emerged yesterday. But the point is, how do you engage the world? How do you come to the things that favors your country? Every president, every country has to put their country need first. So the Women Initiative, digital divide and all these other things, how is the money going to come? The Vice President of America does not have a check of, either the private sector she talked about or the U.S. government treasury to say, hey, I'm going to give you this money. So the question is, now when she gets back to the U.S., Madam Vice President, how are we going to when do we expect this money? When do we expect the first chunk of the money? And what do we need to do in order to receive it? That is a test, and not just the public announcement.
So at the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit last December, the aim was that through its private sector, the United States could attempt to dislodge China's hegemony. How do you think the U.S. approach to countering Chinese influence in Africa differ from China's approach?
Well, I mean, first of all, the Chinese approach cannot be, copied or duplicated by anybody. I mean, America has standards. America has requirements. America will be very hesitant to bribe anybody to do anything in Africa because it's against the law. There's the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act that was passed in the 70s that makes it harder, for U.S. businesses, individuals to go over there, and get opportunity based on, having induced unnecessarily, the African enterprise or African government. So, but China doesn't have such rules. So, I mean, you look at what China is doing in Africa. They're working in, they bring in the money. Nobody sees the contract they have ever executed. The African public people, lawyers, accountants, those who are interested have never demanded from their national government, let's see the agreement that we have executed with China. So China bribes their way and they bring in their own labor to do, what is, inferior product. And I was in Ghana in 2021 and I went to some of the sites, where they were doing this and I shook my head. So, but the thing is, if you allow them to do it, they do it. Every country has to be very protected. Relationship has to be beneficial to the two parties. So far, it has not benefited Africa. Remember, Africa is the oldest continent in the world, and Africa has had 50 years or so or more of independence. The saying, when a fool at 40 is a fool forever. So Africa, a lot of these African countries have been there for 40 years. Ghana, just for some historic perspective, in 1962, 5 years or so after Ghana became independent, U.S. Exim Bank loaned Ghana $100 million to build the Volta Dam. How many years is that? 61 or so years. What has Ghana got to show for it? In 1975, Kenya became the first African country to get a bailout from IMF. What has Kenya got to do with? And now you have Africans who have attended some of the most prestigious universities and colleges, both in the continent and in the rest of the world. So when they get to serve in their government, what is it that they missed in these degrees they put out there, but they don't do anything? So the question has to be, it's not who is giving Africa anything, but it's how is Africans giving themselves. You have to give to yourself before somebody wants to come and give to you. And so far, we haven't done it. We are either waiting for Russia, or we're waiting for China, or we're waiting for US. And then even look, I live here. I've been in America more than 30 years. I've run for office. I'm involved. And there are social challenges. So if Kamala is going to Africa to promise $1 billion, American women are looking for such support. And they're not getting it. Because, women in America are having challenges to sustain businesses or have access to capital. So we can be deceived. I think Africans love these feel-good statements that foreign leaders give to them, but they don't have good feelings at the end. You have to ask yourself the question, what are we missing? Is it not the same currency? The money that America is giving to Africa or the rest of the world, did God send it to them? They printed the dollar. They have figured out how to make the dollar have influence on you. Print your own money.
Right.
Print the cities. Print the naira.
It does appear that you're not really excited about this charm offensive the US is trying to influence Africa with. But then Mrs. Harris's visit comes mere weeks after US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken visited Ethiopia and Niger. But in all of this, most of these visitations haven't recently included Nigeria, which is known to be the giant of Africa. Why do you think these superpowers avoid Nigeria? Is that strategic?
Well, it's not strategic. It's just that when they look at Nigeria has a damaged reputation. Nigeria is a damaged good. I mean, just look at the election that just got concluded, or selection, whatever, if you want to call it selection or election. Nobody has, no reasonable world leader has congratulated, the apparent winner or the one who has been selected. So people know these things about Nigeria. And Nigeria has
when you say no reasonable word has congratulated Nigeria, we've got the ambassador from the United States, we've got the Prime Minister of the UK, even from France, congratulating the president elect and all that. So that does not support your claim.
I mean, okay, that's fine. I mean, but the ambassador does not amount to the level of a world leader. But then, in the mind of Nigerians, anybody who has an American Cairo impresses them. I live here. Those people don't impress me. But the point I'm saying is that, when it comes to Nigeria, the reputation of Nigeria outside of Nigeria is very damaged. And that makes a lot of people very hesitant. I mean, yes, no, since Jimmy Carter visited Nigeria way back in the 70s when Obasanjo was head of state, no American president had touched the ground in Nigeria. I mean, this is something, okay, why? But they have gone to Kenya, they have gone to Ghana, they have gone to Senegal, Egypt, but they have avoided Nigeria. So that is a question for Nigerian leadership. So what are we missing? You look at the picture, in the last summit they had in Washington, D.C. Look at where Buhari was. Buhari was in the fourth row. Not even close to the
Mr. Okpa, so that we don't lose track of our conversation. So at the end of it all, how optimistic are you? That this relationship will be something very quickly will be something that will be beneficial for the African continent. Just in few sentences.
Well, I mean, it's to be seen. Like I said, I appreciate the fact that she went there, and I appreciate there's an interest in Africa, and she's making a multiple country visit. The point is after the fact, after she's left, okay, 1 year from now, 6 months from now, or by the end of this year, how do we see any of these things promised or pledged happen? And that's the test. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Absolutely.
Pledge $1 billion.
Absolutely. I think that's a convenient. Yeah, because of our time, I think that's a convenient place for us to leave it. Thank you so much, Global Affairs Analyst Eddie Kilpa. Thank you so much for your time as always.
All right, I'm back. The democratic way to me is to let these countries be what they want to be. Democracy has always tried to go in, cause chaos, then come in and be the superhero, the one that resolves the situation. And we know that this is typical of a certain hand. Now, with Trump and the situation with Trump, I'm glad that this is all happening. No matter what happens around Trump, you got to know energies are at play. He is going to tear it down and open it wide. Woke is going to be woke. Woke is going to be woke. A lot of people are going to see the injustice system for what it really is, and who controls the hand of said injustice system. They're gonna we need to pull them out from the woodwork. They need to come out from the clouds, from the woods, per se, right? We need to see who they are. That's what we need. We need to see who they are. We need to see this devil for what it really is. And we're going to see in the courts, because we know that no one that ever served in this government system, and this system, period, has not been 100% honest, 100% giving, 100% livid over the conditions, over the people. They've been grifters. Every single one of them. It started out with them owning people, and it ends with them still owning and selling people that we have going on today. Slavery went nowhere. But I tell you what, there's energies that are at play and about to open up the floodgates. And they think that, what did I say a long time ago? I said that you cannot hide your hand. When you throw the boomerang, it's going to come back around no matter what you do. So, with that said, thank you for being here. And till next time, always know that you have the power. The higher self within you is what's going to get you to reach your heaven. So, with that said, peace.